Welcome to day 3 of the Institute. Here's Eric Adamian talking about history panels.
Hello, everybody, and I hope you're having a lovely morning at the day 3 of the Institute. So we're going to start today by an activity with history panels. You may ask, what are history panels? So One Archives Foundation is the leading provider of these high quality and visually engaging history panels that really educate different audiences about LGBTQ history and culture. The panels feature hundreds of rare images and primary sources, never before seen documents, and informative text about LGBTQ history. So the 3 panels that you see on the screen right now are just examples of what these history panels look like. So they have images from the archives, from other archives, and some informative text that goes with it. And we also provide this to educators to use for activities in their classrooms. Now, right before the pandemic, Rob and I created this, Rob created this amazing document that has like an activity, a gallery walkthrough activity that can be used in classrooms with students. So we've adapted that activity kind of to an online version today. And we wanted to go through it and see how it goes, kind of to learn more about LGBTQ history from a certain time period, and have a discussion and fill out some questions about it, and deepen our knowledge about the specific period of time in LGBTQ history. So I have the instructions up on the screen right now. And I'm gonna X out of this presentation for a moment because I want to take us through the instructions. So if you go to the 3-day official agenda, day 3, item number 3 has activity history panels. There's a link there. So if you go ahead and click on that link, it will take you to this document that's hopefully going to show up soon. Uh-oh, my internet's not cooperating. I'm gonna disconnect and reconnect.
If you want one of us to share it and you talk, we could do that.
Rob, do you want to share it? Because, yeah, I think my internet's not cooperating. Would you mind?
Okay. Are you seeing it now?
No, it still says I'm sharing.
Oh, that's interesting.
I'm gonna stop share right now. Okay, perfect. So if you click on that document and it goes to the landing page of history panels, on the first page, we have some information about what the history panels are and how you can access them. If we scroll down to the second page, please. Again, there's more information about the activity. And then we come down to, if you scroll up a little bit, please. Okay, we come to the agenda for the activity and the instructions. So essentially what we're gonna do is we're going to view 4 different history panels from this series today that have to do with the 1950s era of LGBTQ history. And then, as the instructions below say, we're gonna divide into our assigned groups, and when in groups, open the history panel linked above each portion of the note-taking guide. Decide among yourselves a designated note taker. The remainder of the group will be the investigators. So you will spend approximately 5 minutes on each panel to view and discuss it and answer the supporting questions that are in each of the boxes. And the note taker will type in all of the answers in the boxes. And then you will spend the last 5 minutes to discuss and answer the question, how might you include this topic in your history curriculum? The question is written on the note-taking guide. Rob, if we can click on, let's say, group number 1, just to view the note-taking guide really quickly. Wonderful. Again, so the first page has information about the history panels. And if you go to the second and third page, as you can see above each box, there's the name of the history panel, for example, the Lavender Scare, and access history panel here next to it, in which you can view and access it. And if we scroll down to this bottom of the second page, yep, there's the final question. How might I use any of these panels in my class at my grade level? So really think about and discuss the ways that you can use this in your grade level. And then we're going to reconvene after this and share our findings. We will ask each group to have one person share what stood out to them during this activity, or if you find any way that you can use this in your curriculum and in your classrooms, we're going to ask you to share that as well. So Rob, if we can please go back to the slides so we can talk a little bit about this era of history. So before we get started, I just wanted to provide some brief context on what was going on during this period of history. So we're starting with the Lavender Scare in the 1950s. You've heard of the Red Scare. So the Lavender Scare is essentially the LGBTQ version of it. So in 1952, the US Congress passed, and President Truman at the time, well, no, actually it was President Eisenhower at the time, who signed Executive Order 10450, banning homosexuals from working for the federal government, stating that they are a security risk. As you can see, I've included 2 covers of the One magazine, which started in 1953, and that are covering this topic, are homosexual security risks. And again, the term homosexual being used in the context of its time. So this order stays in place actually until 1993, when President Bill Clinton and the US Congress enacted Don't Ask, Don't Tell law. So the Lavender Scare actually affected more people than the Red Scare did. And many activists, LGBTQ activists, came out of it, including Frank Kameny, who was an employee of the government, and he was fired from his job because of his sexuality. And him, alongside other LGBTQ activists, such as Barbara Giddings, organized a lot of different protests, including the Reminder Day protest, which was the annual gathering before Pride events were a thing. People essentially would gather in front of government buildings, especially in Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia and in different cities, and protest and give a reminder to everybody that lesbian and gay folks don't have civil rights, equal civil rights to everybody else. If you can go to the next slide, please. So at this time, also, a lot of LGBTQ folks were organizing into different kind of organizations and communities, like the communities of LGBTQ folks that had returned from World War II, and they were kind of forming their own enclaves in different cities, were now starting to become organizations, because now they were starting to organize to gain civil rights. So the two of the first organizations that started in the 1950s were Mattachine Society, which was a gay rights organization in Los Angeles, and Daughters of Bilitis, which was a lesbian rights, if you will, organization in San Francisco. Mattachine Society was founded in 1950 in Los Angeles, and Daughters of Bilitis was founded in 1955. Now, for the Mattachine Society, they were very secretive. Their organization was kind of structured like the Communist Party. So it was like a you're gay, I'm gay, let's be gay and in the closet together kind of an organization. Because of that, a couple of members of Mattachine Society actually decided to break away and they founded One Inc. If we can go to the next slide, please. So One Inc. is where I work at now, actually, One Archives Foundation. It was founded in 1952 as the publisher of the One magazine that you can see on the screen right now. So the reason why they wanted to found the One magazine is because they wanted to talk about the civil injustices that they're going through. They wanted to share their experiences and publicize their experiences. So naturally, the magazine had really provocative content. For example, you can see on the cover here, the question homosexual marriage was asked for the very first time in any publication in the US on the cover of One magazine. Or next to it, there's a I am glad I am homosexual. So the magazine was first distributed in nightclubs and different newsstands, and eventually it started being distributed through mail as well. And this is when the organization and the magazine got in trouble, so to speak. So there was a 1954 issue of One magazine that included a positive poem about a lesbian couple that fall in love with each other and run away. And the Los Angeles postmaster, Otto Allison at the time, saw this portrayal of a same-sex relationship to be lewd, lascivious, and obscene. And he did not want to distribute the magazine through mail anymore. So One Inc. at the time basically sued the post office, and they said that you can't do this to us. We need to distribute our magazine freely, which this conflict essentially escalated into a Supreme Court case, One Inc. v. Olison, which you can see on the screen also. And One Inc. was victorious by 1958, and we won the case. And it set precedents for a lot of cases that came after that, having to do with homosexuality and freedom of speech. So interesting fact is that One Inc. v. Olison is actually the included in the California History Social Science Framework update as a court case that can be taught when it comes to LGBTQ history. So if we can go to the next slide. All right, so this is again a repeat of the different steps of the activity. I hope that provided a little bit of context as to what was going on at the time. So we have the Lavender Scare, which is happening and affecting so many lives during the 1950s. We have this onset of gay rights organizations that are being founded everywhere, and people are organizing and coming together. And we have a Supreme Court case at this point that has helped the community kind of gain a little bit more of their civil freedoms. So 1950s was essentially the catalyst and a big step in that led to the critical mass that was needed in the Stonewall riots in the late 1960s. And it ushered in an era of protests, an era of LGBTQ people standing up for themselves and fighting for their rights, essentially. So with that said, we're gonna get started on the activity now. So before we do that, I guess, are there any questions about the activity?